Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to America Reignited. I am Nicholas Maloney, and we're here today to talk about some very important developments in the redistricting war, as well as the Supreme Court case that's currently piquing everybody's interest. We have this new article here from Politico. The Supreme Court is hearing a case that could weaken the Voting Rights Act and upend the midterms. The case centers on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, the key provision of the law that broadly prohibits discrimination in voting practices on the basis of race or creed. The Supreme Court on Wednesday will hear arguments in a case that could gut the Voting Rights Act by barring states from considering the racial makeup of voting populations when drawing district lines, an outcome that stands to change the course of next year's midterm elections. In adopting that approach, the justices could upend decades of court decisions holding that states may and sometimes must use race-conscious redistricting to protect the voting power of minorities. Some conservatives argue that any consideration of race in drawing district lines is cynical, discriminatory, and unconstitutional. Advocates for minority voters warn a colorblind interpretation of the Voting Rights Act would erode Black, Brown, and Asian representation in American politics and kick off another round of redistricting amid an already chaotic cycle of mid-decade redraws ahead of 2026. Why are we taking into consideration people's race when voting? Isn't that kind of a problem? Isn't that kind of like racist? I am an American. All of the people in this country, or at least, well, they should be Americans, right? We're excluding the illegals. We know a bunch of them are here. But everybody else is an American. Doesn't matter their skin color. White, black, Hispanic, Asian, everybody is an American. I don't really understand the focus of putting minorities in specific districts that, would ensure that they have representation. They have representation in every district because every American has representation. I agree and support a colorblind approach, personally, when it comes to stuff like this. I don't really like the racialized politics. I think it creates more division in the country, and I think it does us more harm than it does good, personally. I think Americans will vote however they decide to vote. And certainly there are people of every race who like to vote one way or another. It's not, there are plenty of, white folks who vote for Democrats. There are plenty of black folks who vote for Republicans. Politics is not along racial lines, but we're trying to make it that way for some reason, and I don't really understand that. Just personally, I'm not a big fan of that. But President Donald Trump has been pushing red states across the country to redesign their congressional maps as Democrats fight to retake control over the House, leading California to counter with its own push that voters will decide on next month. Yet another potential redistricting resulting from this court case would be a political bonanza for Republicans in next year's congressional elections, according to an analysis from two liberal groups. The case, Louisiana versus Calais, is the culmination of a long-running battle in the state over black voters' representation in Congress. The Supreme Court heard the case in March, but the justices failed to issue a ruling and made the unusual decision to hear it again. And this time, the High Court has signaled its particular interest in the argument that a core tenet of the Voting Rights Act may violate the Constitution. Under Chief Justice Roberts, the court has already curtailed many of the protections within the 60-year-old civil rights law. Weakening it further has long been a goal of some Republican litigators who have argued it gives Democrats an unfair partisan advantage. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and depending on which way the Supreme Court rules, Republicans could find themselves getting more seats in the House going into 2026. We'll see exactly how things work out or play out here, but it'll be very, very interesting. Again, I'm not a big fan of like this racialized political stuff. I'm not. We're all Americans. At the end of the day, that's what we are. And every American ought to have the same rights to vote, regardless of what they look like. So I'm not a big fan of this, racialized political stuff. Personally, just personally. And you also have going on at this time a bit of an interesting redistricting battle, which is also going to potentially shape the outcome of the midterms here. You've got This new article here from Newsweek, Proposition 50 map shows how California seats would change under redistricting. Now, you may have heard recently how Texas has went and redrawed its congressional map, netting the Republicans, I believe, 5 more seats in the House. California is now trying to do that, but the other direction. They're trying to get 5 more Democratic seats. I believe it's 5 more Democratic seats. If passed, the new congressional map would create more Democratic seats in California, thus neutralizing a Republican-favored redistricting plan in Texas, which is already passed. Under the proposal, districts such as California 1, 3, 22, 41, and 48 are planned to shift by shedding conservative-leaning counties and absorbing more Democratic-leaning ones. This is Gavin Newsom here from California. He certainly wants this to happen. He's also someone who appears like he might want to run for president in the future. So it's kind of interesting to see him take a stance like this. Maybe he wants to be seen as someone worthy of being president, if you know what I mean. He's kind of taking like a big stand against his opposition here. That's kind of what he's going for, perhaps. Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say, only he knows for sure. Yeah. And this is a picture here of what the new map, if it passes, and it probably will. I mean, it's California, right? If it passes, this is kind of what the new map will look like here on the right. And this is what the current map looks like here on the left in the picture here. So that's kind of the idea. And it'll be very, very interesting to see exactly what happens. It remains to be seen exactly how things will play out. And it's very, very interesting where we're at currently here with it. But in response to California doing its thing here, you also have a bunch of red states like Indiana, for instance, talking about drawing up their maps. Indiana's talking about maybe getting rid of both of its Democratic districts and having just a straight up 9 Republican ones. This is a proposed map for Indiana here. You can see all the different districts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the whole bunch over here. And there's also talk about other states doing this as well, like Florida and Missouri and a whole bunch of others. Here's the thing about this redistricting battle. Republicans have a lot more states they can draw from in it to, get what they want, if you will. The Democrats have already kind of gerrymandered most of their states. They don't really have much more room to do stuff like this. And the Republicans still have lots of room because they never caught up to the Democrats when they began to do it. So, which honestly, kind of pathetic. They really should have gotten on board with it much, much sooner. But they didn't, and so now they're finally choosing to do it. If we take a look over here at the Illinois congressional district map, you can see it's just hideous. If you look at the bottom of the map here, you can see the tip. You've got one big district down here, which takes about 25% or so of the state. It's one big red district. You've got this secondary red district right above it, which looks like it has this tiny little narrow corridor, connecting 2 big pieces of it with this small, thin little blue district flowing through it like a river. You've got this other misshapen red district up here in the northern part of the state that looks like, I don't even know, it looks kind of like a spider or a crab or something. It's disgusting. And then you've got all this little area over here where all the tiny little districts are crammed into the Chicago area. So it's not a good map at all. And there used to be about 4 Republican seats in Illinois. Now there's only 3. They've been at it for a little while. So the Republicans are finally starting to fight back against stuff like that, and it's long past due because the Democrats have been at it forever to get any advantage they could get. So we'll have to see what happens. If you're Trump, you certainly want stuff like this to happen because you want to maintain your control in the House moving into 2026. And it'll be interesting to see exactly how this plays out. But the out-of-power party usually tends to gain ground in midterms. It's always kind of been that way, especially in recent history. But it's not always the case, and maybe it won't always be the case, once again in this upcoming election. We'll have to see what happens with it. If Republicans redistrict more of their states, and if they get a favorable ruling on the Voting Rights Act, maybe things will play out differently for them. We'll have to wait and see. So this is a bit of an interesting little update I just wanted to give all of you. We'll certainly keep you informed on it, but don't forget, before we sign out here, to make sure you put your thoughts in the comment section down below. I want to hear what all of you have to say about this. I really, really do. And please also don't forget to like the video. We're going to have new political content coming every week, hopefully about every other day. That's kind of my goal at the moment. And I'd like to hear what you have to think. So please don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more content as well, and please leave your comments down below. I'm very, very interested to hear what all of you have to say. So thank you all for tuning in, and have yourself a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you.